What's up guys, Brad here from Piney Grove Homestead, and I am not at Piney Grove today. I am out on our recreational property putting in our last food plot. I want to talk about our equipment for a minute. So let's start with our Kubota tractor. So we are not sponsored by Kubota, but we're definitely impressed by them. This is the Kubota L3901. This is a 2017 model tractor, but it's still made today. And it's got about 350 hours on it. They've pretty much been flawless hours. We've done our routine and regular maintenance, and this tractor has served us well. But it's a 39 horsepower tractor, and it's mated or hooked up to a 5-foot king cutter tiller. So we found this to be a perfect combination for food plots. So what we used to do before we switched to the tillers, we used to use a disc harrow. And a disc harrow is a perfectly good way to put in a food plot. What we found with our soil out here is that sometimes it tends to be a little bit wet, and a disc harrow will cut like a 6 or 12-inch swath and kind of lay it over and not really break it up and crumble it if the moisture content is a little heavy in the soil. So with a tiller, it pretty much doesn't matter whether you have sandy soil, clay soil, wet soil, or dry soil. We're weekend warriors and largely dependent on Mother Nature, so we can't always come out here when conditions are optimal to plant, so we got to come out here when we can. And what we found is that the tiller allows us to plant no matter the soil conditions. So before we move over to the ATV and talk about that, we'll wrap up the tractor real quick. It's a 39 horsepower tractor, is pulling a 5-foot tiller, and it probably could pull a 6-foot tiller in the right conditions, but in the varying soil conditions that we have, we found that this is a good match. But the next thing I want to talk about is the ATV, the Coda Packer, and the spreader. With all of this equipment here, this is what we use to put in our food plots. And I'm not saying that you need all of this stuff to put in food plots. You can do it in a much simpler way. But if you're looking for increased germination and you want to raise the nutrition plane of your property to feed the herd year round, we found that it's best to go ahead and invest in that one time that we come out here and we plant, to go ahead and do it as well as we can so that we raise the nutrition plane and we have food available for the wildlife throughout the year. So talking about the ATV, it's a 400cc Suzuki, it's 4-wheel drive, but 4-wheel drive is not necessarily needed for what we're doing out here. We're spreading seed with the Cabela's 2.0 spreader, and we found that to be a really good spreader. It's easy to use, it's easy to put on and off of the ATV, and it just works really well, and it's just simple, and that's what we like. We want things to work, we don't want to have to mess with them a lot. So it runs off of a cigarette lighter or a 12-volt receptacle on your ATV. It has a little thumb switch that you turn on the spin wheel on and off, and then it has a manual gate that you open. The more you open it, the more seed you put out. With the spreader, we'll go across this land and we'll spread the seed, and then we'll take the tractor and the tiller and we'll till it in. So the next thing that we do is we Coda Pack. So let's come in closer to this Coda Packer and see what that does. So this is a Coda Packer that we designed and had fabricated from an old farm double Coda Packer. So we had a smaller one for the ATV and then a bigger one for the tractor made. But what a Coda Packer does is it takes this center part and it pushes down into the loose fluffy soil that you've created with the tiller. Now you can also use a Coda Packer behind a disc harrow, but it's more critical to use a Coda Packer with a tiller because a tiller fluffs up about 4 to 5 inches of soil. And once you've got your seed in there, you want to compact it. And that's what this does. It's fairly heavy. These are cast iron wheels. They're rolling on a pillow block bearing here on each end. And this 5-foot Coda Packer is a good size behind a 400cc ATV. So our process is throw the seed on the ground, till it with the tiller, come back over and Coda Pack it, and that presses the grain seeds, our larger seeds, into that fluffy 4-inch seed bed. And then we spread small seeds, whether it's clover, turnips, chicory, whatever it is that's a real tiny seed that can't be buried too deep. Once the land is Coda Packed once, we'll throw the seed on top of the Coda Packed land and we'll go back over it a second time on a quick pass, and the weight of this will just press that seed down into the already Coda Packed land, and then you'll have great germination and you won't push those seeds in too far. So I call these food plots, but you could also do the same thing with a cover crop if you're out there trying to protect your land from erosion in the winter or trying to build up your soil profile over the winter. So you can do the same thing in your garden. You can also do the same process if you're putting in a pasture. But that's how we do food plots at Piney Grove and also out here at our recreational property. All right, guys, look what I found here. My good buddy Aaron, he was in a previous video. He came out and helped me all day long put in my food plots when his were already in. But he was bow hunting this morning. So what'd you see this morning? Anything?
Vultures and some wind. That was about it. I had one buck kind of grunting in the woods coming towards me and about 30 yards in the dark, and then never heard it again, never saw it. So kind of an empty day, empty morning, nothing going on.
That's why I gave up bow hunting, because it's just, you sit a lot and you got to get real close to the animals, and I wasn't real good at it. But today's video is about food plotting. I've already gone over the tiller, but Aaron uses the disc harrow. So Aaron, what do you think about the disc harrow versus the tiller for putting in food plots?
As far as the end product, when the plot is right and the soil's right and the moisture's right, you can't beat the tiller. I mean, it makes just a beautiful bed. Some of the problems I've had with the tiller is because some of my plots are in wetter areas. There's a lot more clay. If the soil is really wet and it's chunky clay, the tiller just really binds up and just throws a bunch of chunks. So you got to work at it, and you got to clean the tiller out, and mud gets on the back flap, and it seems to be a lot of work. When the situation is like that, then for me, not the tiller, but the disc seems to work just a tad bit better. But yesterday was a perfect example for Brad's plots. The soil had the right moisture content, right everything, and the tiller just made it look beautiful, and it turned out really great. So in the right conditions, the tiller is the way to go.
So this year for your food plot, when it was really wet early on in the summer, or I guess early fall, you disked to break open the ground to let it dry out a little bit. And now when you put in your food plots last week, you disked again. So how did that work, that double disking?
It was adequate. I mean, when you're talking plots, again, I was joking yesterday, the deer don't care. All they want is food to eat. But from the aesthetic standpoint, it works. The grass is coming up good. It's just not a nice, flat, clean, surface like you get with the tiller. There's some chunks and there's some hills, and it's not perfect, but it's adequate. So, you get what you get.
Like Aaron said yesterday, because I like my plots to be perfect. I like when I'm sitting inside of my deer stand to see like this beautiful green, almost pasture-like environment. But like he said, the deer don't care. They just want to eat it. They want to get those nutrients, and that's what we're all about. But what we're going to do now is we're going to walk this plot, because there's certain areas in this plot that have clover that's still good, and it was planted like 3 or 4 years ago. And that's what you want, is a perennial plot that you plant once and it lasts for years. But in the poor soil that we have out here in Florida, and also the hot summers, most of our clover burns up. But for some reason, this plot has clover that's 4 years old. So we're going to find those little patches of clover, and then we're going to till around them when we put down this year's plot.
Awesome. I'm going to add one more thing on the tiller versus the disc. With the disc, and Brad and I kind of touched on that yesterday, you have to have speed in order for the disc to pick up the dirt, cut the dirt, and throw the dirt the way you want. So as far as what it does to your body, you feel it at the end of the day, because you're constantly, revving up, going faster to get that dirt to throw. Where with the tiller, you can go nice and leisurely and slow. The tiller wants to go slow, and wants it that way. So it's just the difference in the two implements, right? One, you got to go fast, and you got to get some speed. And the other one, you can go nice and slow and take it easy.
I actually didn't think about that. I did the tilling yesterday, so I was going in low gear as fast as the tractor would go in low gear, but I wasn't getting bumped up at all. And going back to last week when I took some video of Aaron disking, he was beating the heck out of himself in the tractor. So yeah, that's another +1 in the tiller column. So if you liked today's video, please click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribing really helps our channel. Also share with your friends, that helps grow our channel as well. But otherwise, that's all I've got. And remember, life is short, tractor hard.